Hey everybody, it's Keith Billik here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Picky Fingers podcast. This is definitely going to be the last one of 2020. We're all going to be so crushed to have to say goodbye to this year, but it also means you only have about a week left if you're listening to this right away to take advantage of the special sale at the Picky Fingers merch store. If you go to banjopodcast.com and check out the store there for all the cool stickers and t-shirts. There's only a few limited sizes and colors left, but the key portion of this is that if you enter BUY 2020 as the coupon code BYE2020, you are going to get 20% off your order. So check that out. Like I said, there's limited sizes and colors, but I'll be replenishing those soon. And in the meantime, you can get a sweet deal on those. Oh, and you have my word that if you order today, I promise you they will not arrive by the holidays. So I'm a man of my word. I'm an honest businessman. You can take that to the bank, but you'll still get your awesome shirt and sticker eventually. Another cool thing to tell you about, a couple episodes ago, I mentioned the Banjo Summit, which was an online banjo camp, and that one was definitely geared more toward advanced players. Well, I have another one to tell you about, and this one's going to be aimed more at you beginners and some intermediate players, just as some really fun motivation and encouraging everyone to make sure you get your banjo in your hands and have a lot of fun learning with some really impressive professionals. Now, what this is a good friend of the podcast, Lara Keithley, who is in the dubious banjo-playing lawyers club out there. She has teamed up with the Americana Music Academy, and they are presenting the Soundbite Banjo Clinic. So clear your calendars for January 9th, starting at 2 p.m. That's Central Time, 2 p.m. Central Time on January 9th. This is a Zoom clinic. It's only going to be a couple hours long, so no need to set aside your whole weekend about this. But the best part about it is listen to some of these presenters that are going to teach you what they know about the banjo. You're going to have Bill Evans, Gina Furtado, Billy Failing, Ricky Meyer, and then a Q&A with banjo builder Tom Neckville. I spy a lot of Picky Fingers veterans there, so you know a lot about those people and how good they are. You can catch that, like I said, January 9th at 2 p.m. And the other best part about it, it's only $25. And the third best part about it is that net proceeds are going to a nonprofit organization to assist musicians affected by COVID-19. So it's all for a good cause, and what better excuse to get your banjo out and learn a few things. Most importantly, the way to find that is to go to the website. That's americanamusicacademy.com/banjo-workshop. That's americanamusicacademy.com/banjo-workshop. And I'll post a link in the show notes too, but make sure you check that out. Next, of course, is when we acknowledge my favorite people out there. You're all my favorite, but a few of you are even more favorite than others. And I'm talking, of course, about the very special Patreon supporters. And today we have two sponsors of the podcast. The first is CJ Marsicano. He is a multi-instrumentalist who found his passion for music by listening to the Sex Pistols, Kiss, and Cheap Trick. So extremely well-rounded, but he's made his way to the banjo now, and I've learned that he's actually a fellow podcaster. He said he was just about to start a music-related podcast called the Groove Music Life Podcast, and I checked it out, and he's got it going. So go listen to what he's doing and support a fellow listener. The other patron of today's podcast is Dale Cardos. Dale gave me a good laugh. We were messaging back in late October, and he was making a choice between donating money to one of our esteemed presidential candidates here in the States or to give it to a Patreon site. And I guess I won. So, man, I love to hear it. That's democracy at work. Good stuff, Dale. So CJ and Dale, thank you both so much for your Patreon support. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon supporter yourself, go to patreon.com/banjopodcast and you'll learn about the terrific rewards. I actually just published a bonus episode for all patrons So those of you who are patrons, go check that out if you didn't see it already. And those of you who are not patrons can access that if you sign up now. So yeah, patreon.com/banjopodcast. Thank you. Other than that, you all know the drill that you hear from every podcast out there. It really helps to rate and review online, 5 stars only, of course, and track me down on all the social medias. I really enjoy interacting with the listeners that way, especially in these times where, let's face it, I'm not doing much other interacting with people who aren't in my immediate family. So it's great for me to know that you're all still out there. All right, on to today's show. This is a freshly picked episode reviewing the album called Chicago Barn Dance and featuring an interview about the album with Greg Cahill. So he of course doesn't need an introduction. You actually, if you're a longtime listener of the show, you've heard a whole episode of him talking about his own experience, but now he is talking about this album in particular. And this interview, as you'll be able to tell, happened a little while ago before the IBMA Awards, for which this album was nominated for several. And I just looked it up, and it indeed won the Song of the Year for the title track off the Chicago Barn Dance. So if this interview doesn't convince you, then maybe the fact that it has the Song of the Year on it will cause you to check it out. So it was a great listen, and always great catching up with Greg Cahill, who's a very good friend of the podcast and a great ambassador for the banjo and bluegrass music in general. As you can probably, you'll be able to tell, at least at the very beginning, we did have some crazy audio problems. You know, I'm not going to go on. You've all experienced it with your Zoom meetings, but you know, as soon as we think we have everything moving, then all of a sudden we get frozen screen or something drops out. It took us way too long to figure this out, but we eventually got it going. But if you do hear some glitches or funniness in the audio, my apologies. I did the best we could, and Greg was a real champ being patient as we moved through the technical difficulties. So here it is. Enjoy the interview with Greg Cahill regarding the album Chicago Barn Dance by Special Consensus. So let's dive in before anything else goes terribly wrong.
Yeah.
So Greg, thank you once again for taking time out of your, I understand it's a busy schedule, even though you're not performing as much as you, probably as little as you ever have in your adult life, I imagine. But I still appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about your new album.
Oh, I'm happy to do it, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Keith. It's great.
Yeah. So this is, I'm an old rock and roll fan, so I'm a sucker for a good concept album, and so I think this is something that bluegrass needs more of. And so why don't you tell us what the concept of this album is, and how that came about, and you know, just the thought process behind what this is.
Sure. Well, you know, in general, this is my 10-year anniversary with Compass Records, recording with them, with Allison producing, and she's just phenomenal. And usually we start gathering material and trying to decide, as we get the material, we all listen to songs, the 5 of us, and start putting our heads together. And then when we select songs that we know we're going to record, we start to see if there, you know, usually there's some sort of pattern or something that develops where we can kind of see a theme. This time was a little different, only because it's the 45-year anniversary of Special C, and also the 25-year anniversary of Compass Records. And so the Special C thing, I have spent probably, it's a little better now, maybe 40 of the 45 years explaining to people when they say, how can you play bluegrass from Chicago? That can't be possible. And it used to be just kind of nasty back in the 70s when we started. And of course, with festivals growing and indoor festivals, so the music could be played year round pretty much everywhere, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, the internet. I mean, that's changed some, especially when there's so many great players coming from places like New York and different places in California and what have you. But I just thought, and I spoke with Allison about it, I said, maybe this is, Chicago, and it just happened to be that the city of Chicago, with our new mayor, decided to call 2020 the year of music. The year of Chicago music. Yeah. So
I was not aware of that.
All these arrows are pointing to, well, what if we just tried to relate, and then I started telling Allison the story of this show, the Chicago, it was actually called the National Barn Dance, WLS Barn Dance, and which was here actually on the radio as early as the 20s, but it was in the heyday of the 30s, 40s, 50s. It ran up into the 60s. And it started as a radio show, and it brought in, there was such a country audience, people moving here for jobs, and especially in the 40s after the war. And so many people of the early country stars were, everybody was on that show, Hank Williams to, the Monroe brothers, they started as dancers. They moved to Indiana to work in the refineries, and they started as dancers, ended up being, the team, the brother duet team. Homer and Jethro actually moved to Chicago to be on the barn dance as regulars, and Gene Autry, Roy Rogers was on there with the Sons of the Pioneers. So it was country, but there really wasn't what we called bluegrass back then. And then as it progressed, a lot of the folks, Scotty and Lulu Bell, were on there, Lulu Bell and Scotty, I should say. So it really has history and roots here in Chicago, and always has, country music. And then the Old Town School of Folk Music was 50 years old last year. And they always brought the front line, the first generation bluegrass bands to Chicago. Bill Monroe and Jim and Jesse and the Osborne Brothers. Jimmy Martin. Everybody played here, usually almost once a year when they came through town in this small place that seated a few hundred people. So anyway, that was the thought. What if we just not only tell people about Special C 45 years, but what if we relate this to here? This is how long the roots of this music have been here, from way before us, and just let folks know that a lot of people have passed through this region and this city. And this used to be at the 8th Street Theater on Saturday night, and people would stand in line for blocks, even in January when it's 20 below zero, just to get in and hear this show. Patsy Montana, it was great.
Yeah, that's cool. And
I was going to say, and I'm very fortunate that I knew several of the performers from those days. Johnny Frigo, one of the greatest jazz fiddlers in the world, who passed away a few years ago in his 90s and played right up until right around the time he died. And he was on the show, and we did jingles in Chicago. I got to do that with him, and then played some shows at some festivals. He would always play not always, but oftentimes play the Fiddlers Gathering, which is in Indiana. And but he was a jazz guy, so he put together a bluegrass band, and I got to play banjo with him. And Bob Atcher, who was the singing cowboy, sort of like the house band guy for the thing. When the show ended, he became the mayor of Schaumburg, one of our suburbs. But he was just starting to regroup. I knew him quite well for a long time, and just so many people. Homer and Jethro, I was great friends with Jethro. I lived like 4 blocks from Jethro for like 18 years. And he actually joined me on my first solo recording back in 1980. And so anyway, there were a lot of connections, in other words. And so that's when Allison just loved that idea. Like she wasn't aware of how entrenched country music really was in Chicago, and she just picked right up on that and ran with it.
Well, I just love how it turned into the final product, like the intro song, for example, which is, the self or the...
Yeah, Chicago Barn
Would that be
Dance.
the eponymous track? Is that the right word for it?
But yeah, I think
the title
so.
track, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It almost reminds me of like the Aeroplane album or something like that,
yeah.
where the same sort of concept, the radio show, and you have Becky Buller and Mike Cleveland doing twin fiddles, so it doesn't get much better than that.
They say the line winds and snakes down Wabash and back up 8th. Have to get your tickets in advance. Chicago Barn Dance.
Exactly. And after telling Allison this story, and then we decided, this is it. Let's see what we can pull together. Songs from the area, from the region. And so she was at a festival playing, with the award-winning Women in Bluegrass, that band that they toured with. And she just mentioned this to Missy Raines and Becky Buller. Said, man, it'd be great if y'all could write a song about this. And they did. They went back to their rooms and they wrote a song while they were on the road. And they did such a great job of researching it, because that is the history of that show. When you listen to that song, I mean, they nailed it. And we were just so happy. And Allison then thought, as she listened, was like, wow. She'd put down these ideas for, hey, what if the fiddles played this? Or how, maybe we give us a little more of that radio show feel, just add to it, that whole thing, that it's a real show kind of thing. And so she's the one who put together the parts for the fiddles and us. I mean, we just jumped right on that. And I just really we've really enjoyed making this recording and the connections. And, I think all of our Compass recordings, we try to bring in friends to play, to join us, just to make it just to show people how much and how enjoyable music is, and you can get your friends and you can make your music, and we just want people to smile and feel good when they hear one of our CDs.
Well, it definitely has that vibe right off the bat. And then the next song is Lakeshore Drive, which maybe I should be more familiar with it, but is this something that like every Chicagoan knows as like a city anthem kind of thing?
That's exactly it, Keith. Yeah. Aliota Haynes Jeremiah. They were really just a great band, and they were Chicago based, and they started touring. They were, one of the bands. There are some bands like that came so close to being this huge deal, but just never quite hit that market. But they did. They were great, and that was such a key song, almost like the way Chicago Barn Dance. That song gives you the history of the barn dance and the whole feel of the country music. Well, when you listen to the Lakeshore Drive, that's a real story, especially for musicians. I can't tell you how many times I drove down Lakeshore Drive coming home at 4 or 5 in the morning after playing a gig and sitting around and picking with the musicians. Chicago's a very great music town, and musicians, especially back in the 70s and 80s, from all genres, would go out to hear other bands and become friends, really good friends, and everybody kind of stuck together and applauded the high bar that was set by so many of the blues bands and the rock bands, and everybody kind of at least vaguely knew everybody else, and it was really great. So that was one of those seminal songs of the 70s.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't think I've heard the original, but I'll have to track that down now. That's cool.
Well, let me say one other thing. I just have to tell you that was really cool. Allison found a tutorial online for the piano parts on that, because they were key, pun intended, on the original.
You don't have to be so black and white about it.
Yeah, right.
I'm so sorry.
That joke fell flat. Yeah. All right.
Oh, no.
So she keyed me in on that, and so I studied the piano parts and just tried to, there are parts in there where the banjo's doing a blah, 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 like really, I don't know what you would call it, triple time, double time.
Tomorrow is another day, and the sun shines fine in the morning time. Tomorrow is another day. just like it anywhere I found. Running south on Lake.
But anyway, so we were just trying to make it a real nod to that song, and to show that, you know, we researched it, we did our homework, and wanted to make it not just throwing together a cover, but really put together something that was as musical in a different way as the original. So I just thought banjo players might want to know something about that, because if you can do this with these piano tutorials, learn, you know, it works on the banjo.
Cool. The next one, East Chicago Blues, that's got to be one of my favorites. I don't know if the whole album was recorded live, but I'm specifically wondering about this one because it's got such great group dynamics to it. It has a very live feel. So I'm curious about how that was.
Well, that came about, you know, Robbie Folks was a Special C boy for a couple years back at around 88, 89, and was actually on one of our recordings called A Hole in My Heart that was released in 1989. And we stayed great friends, and he lived in Chicago until last year, the whole time, raising his kids, and his wife is a phenomenal singer and a voiceover artist. And so we played a festival in Michigan, and Robbie was there with Linda Lewis, who he sometimes tours with now. And Robbie's just an extremely gifted writer, songwriter, and singer and guitar player, but just a brilliant fellow, very, very knowledgeable, studied the music and writing and songs and poetry. And so I saw him and said, hey, we're doing this concept, you know, trying to tip the hat to Chicago, blah, blah, blah. How about, could you write us a song? And he's like, oh, I'd love to, you know, but I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah. Well, and then I got an email from him when he got home and said, you know, I've been thinking about that. Maybe I could do that. We'll see. And then he sent me a note, which I found, no, he called me, and it was, he said, has anybody ever written a song about Bill Monroe in the first person? And I said, wow. Not that I know of. I've never heard anything like that.
Maybe not even Bill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he said, okay. And so if you listen to East Chicago Blues is what he came up with, you know, and it is the story of Bill, you know, moving up from Kentucky to Indiana to work in the refineries, but play his music. If you really just catch the words, I mean, it's so well written. I think it's one of our favorite songs on, you know, the songs written by our friends like Becky and Missy and Robbie. And it just seems so powerful. And just the words. So we did not record it with Robbie. We tried to work that out, and he was going to hop into Chicago on the way from California or on the way back to, I don't know where he was going, New York. And we just couldn't get it when we were all going to be there. But the words were so powerful that we just sat down and you just found the groove right away, you know, just that it's sort of this eerie feeling and real serious venture into what Bill Monroe was all about, really, and how this happened.
Yeah, it's got a darker vibe, and I just really admire the different, like I said, the group dynamics. It's got some breakdown sections and a lot of interplay between the instruments. So however it came together is really cool. And
I will say I played that on the last recording, which we were kind of tipping the hat to John Hartford, and I borrowed Allison's low-tuned banjo and just thought that was it. So we recorded a song called Way Down the River Road, a John Hartford song with that, and it just worked real well. So I had to buy one of those after that, and so on this particular song, which is in E minor, we thought, wow, this would be really cool, you know. So I tuned it to the key of E, but you know, we played in E minor, but the banjo itself is tuned down, which I think brings more of that haunting feeling, you know.
That was literally the next note I had was, is this the Julia Bell banjo?
Question mark.
Well, we're on the same train. All right. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely cool one. What's the next one? My Kind of Town, which is like that's like a crooner Rat Pack song, right?
Frank Sinatra. Yeah.
Yeah. This one's super fun, and definitely for the banjo aficionados, definitely going to want to hear this, because you and Allison do some twin banjos. There's twin fiddles, and it's just a real fun tune.
We were trying to decide, we always put an instrumental on our recordings, and back on the first one that Allison produced for us, Scratch Gravel Road, which was 2012, I had written a tune and asked her if, it took me 2 weeks to get up the courage because, I mean, she's such a phenomenal musician, and I asked her if she would play twin banjos with me, and she said, sure. I was like, oh, thank God, great. And so ever since, we always we put one instrumental on each of our recordings, and then, the next album came on, and I said, what about twin banjos? And so we've done it on the past, on 4 of the recordings now. And so
it's
this
like
one,
new tradition.
Yeah. And it's just such a joy. Well, first of all, just being in the studio, being around her. I mean, we were good friends before we started working together professionally, and she was very good to take us on, and she and Gary have been great. But we were trying to decide, we thought, well, yeah, it'd be good to have the instrumental relate to Chicago, everything else. And we were thinking about the song Chicago, Chicago, But then this one, Allison was right. She said, I think we could have some more neat chordal things happening in my kind of town instead of, Chicago. And it'd be kind of cool. We could really come up with a great twin part, which she did, and arranged. I mean, it was pretty much her arrangement. We all sit around the table and contribute and think about what we're going to do. But this one in particular, she had this vision, this in her ears. And so we actually, the engineer, Matt Cole, who's a great engineer, was able to take the old Frank Sinatra, one of those recordings, and separate his vocal from the instrumentals. So we could really study his phrasing. And maybe that gave it, I don't know if it gave it a polka feel or what it would be, like a swingy. Maybe
kind of ragtimey?
Yeah,
something
ragtimey,
like that.
more of that, and that's how we felt it when we heard how he was phrasing the song. And so we did it, and we started in F and then modulated to G. Allison's real big on modulations. We're catching on to her style, It's always going to be, well, what can we do? That's what's so great. That this is a sidebar. It's just so wonderful working with her because for her, every song is like an album. There's no filler song. It's like we sit down and what can we do to make this song or this tune special? And we'll go through it and rework it. If it's a song, who's going to sing lead, what's going to sound best, how do we want to stack the harmonies? I mean, we really think about the songs, I think, is the message I'm saying. As I said, I studied the piano parts for the Lakeshore Drive, and we studied Frank Sinatra's phrasing for this song. And so, we really put time and energy into how we're going to do it, and then we do it, So this was real fun for us. It was a joyful. The fiddles.
Yeah, that's great. It's a real fun sounding track for sure.
Yeah, it was great. And Patrick and Mike, Patrick McAvenue and Mike Barnett just killed it. We sat in the studio and watched them work out the twin. Well, what if we do this? And that's how it usually is with Al's and me. Well, what if we do this? And okay. And so anyway, it was fun.
Hey everyone, these days we've been all trying to support as many locally owned businesses as we can, and nothing says locally owned business to me more than Elderly Instruments. It's literally a mom and pop store, and now it's actually a mom and pop and daughter store, and regardless of that, they always treat everyone like family anyway. But it's been family owned since 1972. You can see their world famous showroom in Lansing, Michigan. Or if you're not close enough to do that, you can check out their entire inventory online at elderly.com. And who they are, as if you didn't already know, they're the world's most trusted source for new, used, and vintage fretted instruments, including banjos, acoustic and electric guitars, ukuleles, mandolins, and they have everything you need to go with those too. I actually just placed an order with them recently. They had it out their door by the next morning. So not only will they get your order to you quickly, but their down-to-earth and knowledgeable sales staff will help you with any decisions or advice you might need. They can all help you out. And I've said this before, but the best part is they're not on commission, so they're just trying to help people the best they can. So definitely check out Elderly Instruments for any of your banjo or other stringed instrument needs. That's elderly.com, or give them a call at 517-372-7880. The Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast is also sponsored by Peghead Nation, which is an online source of streaming video courses for banjo, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, dobro, upright bass, and ukulele. You're going to learn bluegrass, old time, or any other roots styles from some of the most talented instructors out there. Just the banjo courses alone at pegheadnation.com are really impressive. Check out the offerings that they have. Bill Evans teaches beginning banjo or bluegrass banjo. Evie Layden teaching you clawhammer banjo. You can learn Wade Ward style banjo with Bruce Molsky, the banjo according to Danny Barnes, or contemporary bluegrass banjo with Wes Corbett. And any of those courses you choose are going to come with high-quality multi-angle video lessons, downloadable notation and tab, and play-along tracks. So plenty to learn from, all at pegheadnation.com. And a special offer for you podcast listeners. If you join any of their courses now, you're going to get your first month free. All you have to do is go to pegheadnation.com and use the promo code PICKYFINGERS, all one word, at checkout, and that gets you your first month free. So go to pegheadnation.com. That's the best, when you just have this creative energy and you almost can't play all of your ideas fast enough as they're coming to you.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, speaking of trying to be true to, old versions of these, you had Rob Ickes sit in on the CCR tune.
Right.
Which is really cool, getting the slide guitar going, and you stayed pretty true to that tune basically until the end. There's some extended soloing, which is always good fun. Yeah, again, all the scratching of strings and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was just a fun, we try every song on this recording has some link in some way, even though it might be vague, but a link to Chicago, either by the songwriter or by the content of the song, or just by maybe the proximity of the songwriter. I mean, this song, this song starts, just got back from Illinois, and so we made, that we thought and that was a huge song in Chicago, and then of course, they had a key change in that song. So not to be undone, Allison was like, okay, let's change keys. Okay. And then, okay, let's change keys again. What? Okay. Let's, so that's what at the end, it's just changing keys after. And we're just chuckling the whole time. It was fun.
Yeah, that is cool.
And Rob killed it, on the dobro. Oh my God. Yeah. He's such a great player.
Of course. Yeah. Perfect choice. I was wondering, so the next two after that, to me, seem like they're both New Orleans themed. Am I dreaming about? I mean, obviously the city of New Orleans is explicitly about New Orleans, but I Hope Gabriel Likes My Music. Isn't that like a Dixieland tune?
Right.
So is there some New Orleans connection that I'm not understanding, or?
No,
okay.
Not actually. That's a good point, and I can see how you would see that. But no, city of New Orleans. Steve Goodman was from Chicago,
Okay.
And we were friends.
That's it.
And in fact, there was a major club in Chicago called the Earl of Old Town, a major folk club for years. It was the place, it'd be like the Gate of Horn or something, or like any of the big folk venues. And we finally got to play there. And the first time we played there, the seating, came right up to the stage. And I looked down, and by God, there's Steve Goodman sitting in the front row. Because, he loved mandolins. He had Jethro playing with him for years in his later part of his career. But that's how we met Steve Goodwin. He came out to hear us, and I didn't say anything to the mandolin player, till on the break we went around to the back. They had a little pub in the back of the Earl where the musicians would go, and a lot of the journalists from town, everybody would hang out. It was very artsy, and it was called Sylvester's. No, it wasn't. It was oh God, I can't remember. But anyway, so that's how we met, and so the connect. Steve was just beloved by everybody, loved by everybody. He was a beloved institution in Chicago, and his passing was so sad, and he's still a rock star in Chicago. He'll never be forgotten. His music and the stuff he did with the Cubs. He was a huge Cubs fan, and just so integrated into the city. So that was, we had to have that on there. And then Gabriel Likes My Music is probably the vaguest connect, but Rick Ferris and I, when we were teaching at the Midwest Banjo Camp, and Mike Dowling was an old bud of mine. He used to live in Chicago, and then he moved out to Wyoming and started his own music camp and what have you. And so he was there, and we got to visit a lot. And one night he said, "Hey, let's just sit on the porch here and play some tunes." So we did, and he started playing that song, and Rick wasn't there yet. It was just the two of us were sitting. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this tune," because I love that swingy stuff. My mom was a honky-tonk piano player, and so that style of playing. And
that's kind of your thing.
So he played that, and oh my God, and Rick came by and heard the middle of it on and couldn't get his guitar out fast enough. He said, "We got to do that again," So we really wanted to put that on the recording, and knowing that it was a Dixie kind of thing, but it was a huge hit here in Chicago for Louis Armstrong. And he was here with all the big bands back in the day, the 20s and 30s and, in the 40s, playing the big ballrooms and everything. And that was one of his signature songs. So that was the Chicago Connect. It was like, okay, this makes sense, And
that's cool.
So that's how that got on there.
Yeah, that year at Banjo Camp was the first time I had ever seen Mike Dowling play live too. And man, he just knows how to put all the notes exactly where they need to be. He can really make that thing sing. Yeah.
Perfect.
So tasty.
He's so tasty. He's just awesome. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
The next song is I Am the City, and I always love it when Dan gets a chance to be featured because he's such a great musician, and just any time he can be a little more to the forefront, he deserves all the attention he's going to get for that.
I totally agree. Yes, he's just a phenomenal, not just bass player, but bass player is his thing, and he's got a degree in jazz performance, a master's degree, and he taught in school, but he's the nicest down-home guy and grew up loving bluegrass music, he'd go to festivals with his granddad, and so he started writing that, and this was when we had our theme totally clearly identified, which was the Connect to Chicago. And
that's what I was going to ask, is if it was in response to that prompt or not.
Yeah. Totally. It was probably the last song finished writing. I mean, when people were writing songs or sending us stuff, or we were trying to decide. Because he really, he brought the concept in and just had ideas for some of it, and it was like, yeah, this is cool, and the chord structure is really, really different, and it sounds kind of like a common structure in a way, but when you get into it, it's cool. There's a funny major or minor chord sometimes that appears, and so. And it was great because then we had a song for him to sing, and he wrote it, and it was about the city. So I Am the City. It was great.
No brainer, yeah. And I have to say, particularly good backup banjo on your part on that. Sounds so great. You can just hear it chugging through the whole thing, and a lot of drive to it. Just not unusual for you, but that song in particular seemed to give you a chance to really kind of
just groove on
step back and roll with it. Yeah,
I love that. Cool. I love doing that. It just adds another texture, I think. And drive.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. One of the lyrics in that song refers to, I have it written down here, the song of home playing on my radio, and I just loved how that kind of fit perfectly with the theme too. That really wraps it up in a nutshell, right?
It does.
The song of your home playing on the radio.
Yep, it does. He did a great job with it, and he worked on it. He massaged that a lot just because he wanted it to be just right. And I think he nailed it.
Yeah, definitely. Then we have a token gospel barbershop number. Won't That Be Happy Time? And I guess this is the time to kind of give kudos. Is this Nate's first recording with the band?
It is. It is. And in fact, he had not played a live show with us when we recorded. He did this in December. We did this, finished it up in December, but had worked on it. It was hard because we have such we used to have such a busy tour schedule. So we had to come in for a week here or two or a week there or whatever. And then, he had not really played a live show with us before. We did the entire recording is what I'm saying before he ever played live with us. So he's great. He was great. He just jumped right in, and he's a great singer and a great musician.
Yeah, he really showed up, especially like vocally on this. And I know on the Folks tune, I think that was him singing quite a bit on that. Yeah, he's nailing the stuff like he's been there for years. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, back just for a second to that the East Chicago blues. The perspective there was that Nate was kind of then the narrator, and then because we weren't sure if Robbie was going to be able to sing on it or not because of schedules and everything,
Okay.
And Nate was going to sing it, and he does that if we do it live. He'll do that, but then Robbie was able to do it. So that's how it's set up. So Robbie's kind of like Bill Monroe telling his story. The narrator comes in, Robbie tells the story, and then they finish singing together, So there's just a footnote to that. Yeah.
I'm glad to know all of this about that. I'm going to listen to it in a different, with a slightly different perspective now. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got? Sweet Home Chicago, of course. Has this been done, as far as you know, in a bluegrass style before?
Not as far as we know. It just seemed like such an obvious choice. I was worried. I was worried, maybe it was too much of an obvious choice. And God, what are the blues folks going to think, if we come and double time a song like that, which is such a signature song for, all the really down home blues bands do that song, of course, whether they're from Chicago or not. But Allison was like, no, hey, this will be cool. Let's just make it cool. We'll make it our own, blah, 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 and so we did. And I'm real glad we did it. Yeah, it's fast. It was tricky. It took a while to play all the nuances and all the stuff. And we change, split solos a lot throughout the recording of that song, and that got a little. It was fun, but you had to really be on your toes. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah, it's such a great band feature. You're throwing solos around everywhere, and
I thought Rick sang it so well. Golly, he nailed it.
Yeah, we were just talking about Nate's strong debut, and yeah, Rick really steps up on that one for sure. I think we were just talking about Sweet Home Chicago. Awesome, chromatic playing. I know you kind of said how it went really fast and was a little bit by the seat of your pants maybe, but yeah, you managed to throw in some really cool chromatic stuff particularly, but great band feature. Good stuff.
It was, and I have to credit Allison though. I mean, she sure pushes me to do something different. I can imagine. Come up with it, and it's just she's just I'm very thankful to have her as our producer. I think she just brings out the best in each of us. Just makes us. You already did that. Do something different, and come up with stuff, and just truly brings out the best in each of us in the band. And it's I can't.
Well, and especially now that she's been with you through several projects, she even has a bit more of an institutional knowledge as to where the band has been before. And,
right.
To that point, can keep pushing you in new directions. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's we're very lucky to have her. Yeah.
And then, of course, the the other bookend of the album is the
reprise.
Is this a live recording from 1949 Special Consensus gig on the radio? Is that where this was recorded from?
Yeah, a lot of people will think that. That's for sure, because I'm always getting birthday present nods and cakes. But yeah, I thought they did a great job. Ned came in, Ned Luberecki, our good bud, and he had great ideas about, how, well, and that was Allison's idea, to have the reprise like that and put those pieces together. But Ned just really made it sound authentic, It did.
He's perfect for it. Yeah.
I'll point out another subtle thing that I didn't know for sure they did until I listened to it. But in the reprise, when they're singing the song, and listen for what Rick says at the very end of his trail off as he's singing.
Oh, you're not gonna spoil it for us? We're gonna have to go back because I didn't notice offhand.
Okay. For $5, I'll tell you. All right. Now, it says blah, blah, blah. And then, and it's Greg's birthday.
Oh, that's great.
They slipped it in.
Yeah. I love it.
I laughed so hard. Yeah.
Never gets old, does it?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. The other things I like to make sure we do is, I know we mentioned a lot of the guest stars, but just in case we didn't give anyone their proper due, I'm kind of looking back through the notes to see if there's anyone who, contributed to this record that we didn't make sure to thank or to acknowledge.
We have to mention our dancer. She was wonderful.
Oh, this is Marsha, right?
Marsha Campbell. Yeah. She made it, that song at the end, because she was doing the hooping and hollering and dancing. And I mean, she's just great. She really helped make it totally authentic. And I don't know if it's a spoiler alert or not, but, they're having the virtual IBMA awards show coming up. Mm-hmm. And I will say that we're going to do the Chicago Barn Dance song on the award show, including her dancing. So
that's so cool. What a great idea. And that actually leads me right into making sure to congratulate you, because this recording, either as the collection itself or various songs on them, is up for what I saw it on at least like 3 or 4 awards, something like that. How many is this up for?
4 altogether.
Oh, that's great. Congrats.
The band and the record. I mean, a total of 4. I think it's Entertainer of the Year for the band, and then Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and Collaborative Recorded Event of the Year.
Recorded event, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. I'm not sure if this interview will be released on my podcast before or after the awards, so hopefully this comes out in a celebratory situation for you.
We're just honored, seriously honored to be nominated, as everybody says, but it's, we are. It was great. We were floored. So it's good.
Yeah,
we're happy.
That's cool. So I know we covered the Julia Bell banjo, but we have banjo nerds listening. What banjos other than that were used in the making of the record?
I have an old Kel Croydon banjos that my great friend Tom Lang. It's a very long story how we. I've been, I don't go to pawn shops hardly at all ever. I've only been in a few pawn shops in my life, but one of the times that I went, this banjo was hanging on the wall as a tenor banjo, and it had obviously been played a lot. And we were doing some school programs, and this was on the lunch break. The pawn shop was right next to the restaurant that Tom took us to have lunch. And while we were doing the recording, while we went to do the next program, this was in Pontiac, Michigan, Tom went and picked up the banjo, and that was so generous. I mean, I was floored. So anyway, I kept it in my office here for 5 or 6 years because I didn't know if I was going to put a tone ring in it. It just had the hoop, and you have to cut the wood, and I agonized over that. and I was going to have the 5-string neck made, and I wanted to either put a tone ring in when I had that done or not. But I finally decided to do that. So Frank Neat made the neck for it, and I've had a couple of different tone rings. Right now it's got a Yates tone ring in it. And I just love that old Gibson sound, I just, man, and this had it. But then, so I played that in the beginning. Yeah, it's a couple of the songs. To be honest with you, I can't remember because in November we always play a show for the Down Home Guitars shop in Frankfort, Illinois, and they have the huge summer festival there, right? Steve. And he had taken this banjo in and trading for a guitar or whatever, and he asked me to play it, what I thought, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it's another Kel Croydon. And I don't know the details. I don't even know who made the neck and what tone ring is in it because I don't want to take it apart. It just sounds so great. So I just bought it from him, and I played that on most of the songs on that recording.
Do those two sound similar to each other, or are they pretty different?
No, they really sound similar. I would say the one, they're both from the 30s. The one that I had originally was, I think it's a 35, and this one is probably about the same. But this one clearly, I think, sat under somebody's bed for a long time because it's in great condition. It looks like a new banjo pretty much, whereas the other one looks like it's been played a lot, and the pot metal's bending up like they do on the flange.
Yeah, on the flange. Yeah.
So
are there original 5-string Kel Croydons?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know a whole lot about these old banjos. I mean, I know some, but I don't think so. But I'm not sure. Not that we were actually called Kel Croydon. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Anything else that we didn't talk about that you were really itching to have people know about this album? We covered a lot of good ground, and can definitely endorse it as a really great listen. But I
appreciate that. No, I think we'd appreciate it. The problem for us was we even pushed back. Compass did push back the street date. You could buy it in March, but the actual street date they pushed back to May 15th, hoping that we could maybe be back at least partially touring. So we haven't played one show since this is released. It's like if anybody passes through Chicago, I have a few boxes of these, right? Because we haven't been able to go anywhere with them. But if they really are interested, or there are some videos now on our specialc.com. We did a virtual video of Chicago Barn Dance where we each did it in our homes. And, of course, Compass put it together. Jody, their videographer, did a great job of putting that together. And then we did another sort of virtual version of My Kind of Town, where we got a videographer, and he and I went to all the places. We made a list that Allison thought would be good, and of the popular, well-known Chicago landmarks. So we were, by the Art Institute and by the Bean and by Wrigley Field and all that. Of course, one of the places we had to go because Allison insisted was a hot dog stand because she loves Chicago hot dogs. So you have to go there and have one for me. And I said, okay.
Is there there's a specific stand that she knows she likes? Like
no, just that style, what they call Chicago style hot dogs, and and they are great.
That's great.
And there are many of these. So we went to one that wasn't far from Wrigley Field, Wrigleyville Dogs, and. But so we played the tune. I just went and played the part of the tune in front of each of these places. And then all the other people involved, the other guys and not Marcia, that was Chicago Barn Dance, but everybody else, including Allison, recorded at home, or in their own studio or whatever, their part for the video. And then just put it all together. So those two videos of those two songs are on our website if you want to check it out, a visual version of it.
Cool. And that's specialc.com. Is that the best website for people to know about if they do want to pick up
It is,
a copy of the record?
You can pick up a copy of the record there, and see a bunch of videos and listen to some other music as well, some of our other songs. So that's great. And I have to say to you, I have to thank you for doing these podcasts. They're so interesting. And you've done so many of the, you could just learn the styles of so many players and so much about banjo with the podcast you've done. It's a real great thing, Keith. No kidding.
Oh man, I appreciate you saying that. It's just as thrilling you look great in it too. No, it's just as thrilling for me to get to talk to you and all your cohorts as it is for the people listening. So I'm just glad people want to listen to it because I'm enjoying doing it, and I'll keep it going as long as I can. So I always appreciate you being a part of it, and the kind words and everything mean a lot. That's cool.
It's a good thing that you're doing. Thank you for that. Really, I know it's a lot of work too, so thanks a million.
It is a lot of work, but honestly, I wish I could do it even more. I would love to just, focus on it. Well, I'll let you go, Greg. I mean, even though you didn't include any songs about like Mike Ditka or Polish sausages, I really expected something more out of this, but I guess we can work with this as it is.
We'll just have to do another one on the 100th anniversary of the band. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Even better. In quarantine time, that should be here in no time, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, right.
I think we're all living in dog years or something like that.
Oh man, seems like it. Or Groundhog Day dog years, yeah. Holy cow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Groundhog Day dog years. Like in one way it's stretched out, and in another way it's just the same day.
Right.
Over and over again. Thanks for listening, everyone. That was Greg Cahill, the banjo player with Special Consensus, talking about their recent album, IBMA award-winning album, The Chicago Barn Dance. Once again, thank you so much to CJ Marsicano and Dale Cardos for being the Patreon supporters of today's episode. You can go to patreon.com/banjopodcast to learn how you can help support the show too. Don't forget to sign up for the Soundbright Banjo Clinic. That's at americanamusicacademy.com/banjo-clinic. And that's only $25 and it's for a good cause. So win-win-win situation there. Contact the show by emailing pickyfingersbanjopodcast@gmail.com. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year, and I will see you back here in just a couple weeks for the first episode of 2021. And until then, everyone take care of yourselves and see you later.